If she asks, just tell her it doesn't fit. It looks cheap. I stopped in the hallway, hands still resting on the doorframe. The garment bag swayed slightly in my grip. I hadn't even stepped inside the bridal suite. I wasn't supposed to hear that. But there it was, my son's voice, clear, careless, slicing through the soft hum of laughter behind the door. He didn't even sound angry, just amused, like it was a joke between them, something to brush off like lint on his new tuxedo. I turned around before they saw me. My fingers clenched the strap of the bag nails, pressing into the leather as I walked back down the hallway. No one stopped me. No one called after me. The lobby was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt like it didn't even notice I was there. I drove home without the radio on. The suit lay across the back seat, pressed and finished buttonholes, hand-stitched lining, soft as breath. 5 months of measuring, sewing, redoing sleeves when he said his shoulders had gotten broader. 5 months of imagining how proud he'd look walking down the aisle in something made by his mother. It was supposed to mean something. I wanted it to mean something. The house welcomed me the way it always did. Light filtering through the kitchen curtains, the faint creak of the floorboards, where no one else ever walked now. I didn't bring the suit inside. It stayed on the back seat untouched. I didn't know what to do with it, only that I couldn't look at it yet. So I sat at the table alone, listening to the silence settle in around me. I kept my coat on. I didn't cry. Not then. I just thought about the fabric he'd never wear, the collar he wouldn't touch, and wondered how love could be so invisible. I used to sew to survive, hem by hem, collar by collar. When Ezra was small, every extra dollar I made came from a needle and a spool. I stitched uniforms for neighbors' curtains for a motel, downtown Halloween costumes made from old drapes. I bartered repairs for groceries once. I made it work. I always made it work. When he was 6, I sewed patches onto his backpack each time it tore. When he was 12, I let him pick the fabric for his birthday shirt, even if it meant I skipped mine. And when prom came around, I stayed up 2 nights straight, making him a tuxedo. He swore fit better than the store-bought ones his friends wore. He said it with a grin then, back when he still smiled at me like I mattered. After my husband died, it was just the 2 of us. Ezra and me side by side in our little kitchen, eating boxed macaroni and laughing at how bad I was at peeling oranges. He never asked for more than I could give. Maybe that's why I thought he'd understand what this suit meant. Maybe that's why I thought he'd feel it, the hours, the care, the quiet hope stitched into each seam. But he didn't. He looked at it and saw something cheap. I don't blame her, the girl he's marrying. I barely know her. Maybe she thinks I'm old-fashioned or too sentimental or just invisible. But Ezra knew better. He knew what 5 months of sewing meant. He knew it was my way of saying I'm still here. And he laughed. That's the part I can't stop hearing. Not the words, but the laugh. Light dismissive, like my effort was some punchline. I keep wondering what I did wrong. Not with the suit, but with him. What moment, what decision, what lesson did I miss? I raised a man who could humiliate his own mother behind a closed door. And now the door is open, but there's nothing on the other side. I want back. The coffee shop was mostly empty when I arrived. It always was on weekday mornings, just a few regulars, quiet music, and the sound of the espresso machine groaning like it didn't want to be awake either. I sat by the window, hands wrapped around the cup. I wasn't really there for the coffee. I just needed to be somewhere I didn't have to explain anything. Somewhere the silence didn't echo so loud. That's when I noticed him, young, probably early 20s, hunched over a stack of papers in the corner. His fingers were twitching, flipping pages too quickly to be reading. The kind of nervous you can feel from across a room. His collar was frayed. White shirt, maybe once crisp, now soft with wear. His shoes had split at the heel. Not dirty, not careless, just tired. Lived in. Like him. I don't know what made me say something. Maybe it was the way he kept adjusting his tie like he wanted it to behave. Maybe it was the way he mouthed his words over and over like they might disappear if he didn't catch them. I stood, walked over and asked gently, "Presentation?" He looked up, startled. "Defense," he said. "My engineering thesis. 2 hours from now." I nodded. "You look smart, but you don't look ready." He laughed once, embarrassed. "Yeah, well, can't afford a suit. This is my dad's old stuff." I hesitated for just a breath. "There's one in my car. Just about your size." He blinked. "Sorry I made it. My son didn't want it. But you might." I watched his face change, confused. First, then careful. But something in him softened. Hope, maybe. We walked to my car together. I took the suit from the back seat, unzipped the bag, held it out. He ran his fingers across the fabric like it might vanish. Then he nodded, slipped into the back and tried it on. When he stepped out, he didn't look nervous anymore. He looked like someone who belonged in the room he was walking into, and he thanked me like no one ever had. I didn't expect to hear anything else from him. I gave him the suit, and that was enough. Some things aren't meant to be returned, not the fabric, not the moment. But 3 days later, my neighbor's daughter sent me a photo. Said I had to see it. It was Jalen, standing outside a campus building, sunlight hitting him just right. Same suit. Same posture. I remembered nervous at the edges, but upright. Confident. His smile was wide and unsure, like he didn't believe yet that the moment was real. The caption underneath read, "First in his family to graduate." The suit was a gift. He said it made him feel like he mattered. I stared at it for a long time. The picture had barely been up for a few hours and already the comments were multiplying. Where did he get the suit? Can she make one for my brother? This is the kind of story we need more of. Does she take orders? I didn't have a website. I barely used social media. But the cafe owner, Lenora, who'd overheard my conversation with the boy that morning, had tagged my name beneath the photo when someone asked about the suit. And from there it spread. A teacher from Raleigh emailed me, then a woman from Atlanta. They weren't asking for custom tuxedos. They were asking for meaning, for intention, for something that could make the boys in their lives feel seen, even just once. I closed my laptop and sat still at the table, the kitchen clock ticking louder than usual. I wasn't used to being looked for. Not like this. Not by people who didn't know my name last week. And yet there was a strange calm inside me, like something had finally turned the right way after too many years leaning off center. I hadn't done anything grand. I just saw someone who needed to be noticed. And now others wanted to be seen too. I didn't reply to the messages that night. I just printed the photo, trimmed it neatly, and placed it in the wooden box I kept in the hall cabinet. After the photo, the messages didn't stop. Some came by email. Some arrived by mail, handwritten on soft paper that smelled like laundry soap and rose perfume. Most were from women, mothers, grandmothers, even a foster parent or two. They'd seen the picture of Jalen and wanted to know if I could do the same for their boys. A suit, they said, for an interview, for a graduation, for a courtroom appearance, for a second chance. Some offered to pay in full, more than full. A few even tried to send deposits without asking, but I never took orders. I wasn't running a business. I made myself a promise after Jalen that I'd only sew for those about to cross something important. Not because they wanted to impress, but because they needed to believe they belonged. I started saying yes, but not to everyone. I asked questions first. Where are you going? Why does this moment matter to you? What would you wear if you felt worthy? Sometimes they came in person, trembling, rehearsing words like they were applying for permission to be seen. I never charged much. A few bills to cover thread lining buttons, and sometimes I asked for something else entirely. A letter written after their moment passed. Tell me how it went. Tell me what changed. Tell me what you felt walking in wearing something made just for you. They came in slowly, at first 1 or 2 a month, but by spring, I had a stack that no longer fit inside the drawer. So I cleared out the old linens from the wooden box in the hall and placed the letters inside. Some had photographs. Some came with tiny notes tucked in the margins. I didn't stutter this time. They shook my hand twice, my mother cried. I read each one only once, then folded it away. I didn't need to memorize them. I just needed to know someone walked taller because of something I made with my hands. Ezra didn't call. Not after the suit. Not after the wedding. Not even a message to say he understood why I left early or why I never came back. It was my neighbor who told me how it went. She'd run into someone who'd attended a cousin, I think. Said it was extravagant. Outdoor garden linen napkins rolled with gold rings, custom cocktails with names like his and hers. There were string lights draped over oak trees and a quartet flown in from Savannah. She said the bride's family gave a speech, long, emotional, full of tears. The word mother was mentioned more than once. Just not mine. I nodded politely and smiled, like it didn't scrape something raw inside me. Then I went inside, closed the door, and turned off the porch light for the rest of the evening. A week later, I found the wedding photo in the back of the local paper, black and white, 2 columns wide. Ezra was smiling. His tuxedo sleek, tailored, expensive fit, like it had been measured by someone with cold hands and no memory of his boyhood shape. The caption listed the names of the bride's parents. Just them. No mention of me. Not a single syllable. I cut it out anyway. Smoothed the edges. Took a moment to stare at the space between his arms where I might have once belonged. Then I slid it into the box behind the letters. I didn't fold it. I didn't cry. I just tucked it there out of sight, like a keepsake from someone who never existed. The truth is, I had already mourned my son. Not because he died, but because somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me as someone who mattered. I used to think being forgotten would feel like silence, but it doesn't. It feels like noise, other people's laughter, clinking glasses, names called in celebration. A chair you set at the table that no one ever sits in. And still the next morning, I got up early. Someone was coming by to try on a suit. It was mid-June when the magazine arrived. A thick, glossy thing I wouldn't normally read. It was my neighbor again, the same one who'd told me about the wedding. She handed it to me over the fence with a grin that said, "You're going to want to see page 12. There he was. Jalen. Full-page photo. No suit this time, just a collared shirt and a lanyard badge around his neck. The article called him a rising junior engineer, part of a renewable energy initiative gaining state funding. His smile looked the same, nervous underneath, like he still hadn't gotten used to being taken seriously. I skimmed the first few paragraphs expecting jargon until my own name stopped me cold. Not my full name. Just Merelda. No last name, no business listed. Just this. The suit was sewn by a woman who didn't even know me, but she made me feel like I could walk into the room and be seen. I read that line twice. Then again. My hands didn't shake, but something in me did. The writer called me. The graduation tailor. Said my act of kindness had inspired others. Said I was part of why Jalen believed he belonged in his field now. Said maybe in some quiet way I'd stitched more than fabric. Requests started again. Faster this time. From nearby towns, community colleges, youth programs. Some were from boys themselves, now emails written carefully, full of grammar and hope. I read each one, and with most, I responded the same. Not right now, but I'm honored you asked. Because it wasn't about the suit anymore. Not really. It was about what they thought the suit could give them: dignity, presence, the sense that someone had seen them and said, "You're worth this effort." I couldn't give that to everyone. But for the ones I did say yes to, I gave them more than thread and fabric. I gave them my time, and my silence, and my belief. And then one afternoon, I got a knock on the door that didn't come from the postman or a student. I heard the car before I heard the knock. A sleek thing, too quiet, too new to belong to the usual folks who visited. The knock came 3 seconds later. Firm, impatient. When I opened the door, Ezra stood there in a pressed shirt and tired eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept well in days, but still too proud to say it. He didn't say hello, just, "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He didn't sit, just stood there glancing at the sewing machine in the corner, the fabric stacked in neat piles, the box of letters half open on the cabinet shelf. I saw that article he said, like it was a casual thing. The one about that kid. The suit. I nodded. He shifted, cleared his throat. I was passed over for the promotion. Again. It's a long story. I didn't ask for it. Then came the part he thought would land soft. Mom, I was wondering if you could make me something. For an event next month. Something like what you made for that kid. He didn't say Jalen's name. Didn't ask how I'd been. Just stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I used to warm his bottles, asking for a suit, like it was a shirt off a rack. I looked at him for a long moment. I don't sew for everyone, I said, quietly. He frowned. What does that mean? It means I only sew for those standing at the beginning of something, not those running from what they ruined. His mouth opened, then closed. I could see it. The insult rising, then the confusion, then the slow sting of understanding. He didn't yell. He didn't apologize either. He just stared at me like I was someone he didn't quite recognize. Maybe I wasn't anymore. I walked back to the counter, picked up a spool of thread, and let the silence settle between us. When he left, he didn't close the door all the way. I did. Gently. With my own hand. And the next day, someone else rang the bell. His name was Dion. 18. Quiet. He stood on my porch like he was afraid even knocking might be too much. He'd been referred by a youth counselor who had written me a note in careful penmanship. No parents. Good heart. Trying hard. Can't afford a thing. I let him in. Offered water. He shook his head. Just stood there, shoulders drawn in, like he didn't know what to do with the space around him. I've got an interview, he said. Apprenticeship? Carpentry. Then after a pause, I don't want to look like a burden. That line stuck to my ribs. He reminded me of Ezra. Same height, same nervous hands. But the energy was different. Dion didn't wear pride like armor. He wore humility like skin. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just hoping not to be dismissed before he had the chance to try. I measured him slowly, carefully, told him to come back in 10 days. When he returned, I had the suit waiting. Dark charcoal, clean lines, a little extra room to grow. He slipped into it like it had always belonged to him, stood taller without being told to. He looked in the mirror and whispered, I look like I matter. He left, clutching the hanger with both hands. 3 weeks passed. Then he came back. No email, no call. Just stood at the door holding a box of grocery store pastries and blinking hard. I got it, he said. They said I looked ready. I let him step inside. We sat, shared a sweet roll between us, and talked about lumber and safety goggles and the smell of sawdust in the morning. Before he left, I reached into the drawer and handed him a little cloth tag, no bigger than a thumbprint. He read the words out loud. You are not invisible. I showed him how to stitch it in. Not on the outside. Not even in the collar, but inside the inner pocket where his hand might brush it on nervous days. And that night, the box of letters got one more addition. The letter came folded neatly inside a manila envelope. No return address. Just my name in tidy print, the kind that says someone took their time. Inside was a note and a photo. The photo showed a young man standing at the center of a courtroom. He was mid-sentence, one hand raised in calm emphasis, suit jacket, buttoned chin, lifted just enough to meet the eyes of the jury. His name was Mateo. I remembered the slight slope of his shoulders when he first visited, the way he couldn't quite meet my gaze when he said, "I want to be the kind of man my little brother looks up to." He had been 22 then, starting law school on scholarship, sleeping on a couch in his aunt's living room. He didn't ask for much, just a suit that wouldn't betray how small he sometimes felt inside it. In the photo, he looked like someone who belonged in the room. The letter was brief. "I stood today in defense of a boy who reminded me of myself. When the judge thanked me afterward, I touched the inside of my pocket and felt your tag. I thought you should know it still holds." I smiled. I folded the note gently and slipped it into the box, the one on the shelf above the radiator where I keep every letter, every small moment someone thought to send back. The box is heavier now, not with regret, with proof. I placed the photo on top, closed the lid, and slid it back into its place. Outside, the world has moved on. Weddings, promotions, departures. But here, in the quiet hum of thread and needle, I am still doing what I know best. Not saving anyone, just sewing. And every time a young man buttons a collar, straightens his back, and walks into a room believing he matters, I know I've done something that holds. Even if they never speak my name,